Welcome today to our Arizona, Utah webinar. We have Jill Schroyer back with us today for part 3. She's going to talk about feedback, and I'm going to pop up my little slides here really quick. I know many of you know about Score Utah and what we offer, mentoring, webinars like today, workshops, on-demand courses, and of course we have a library of templates and other helpful infographics and resources for our clients to use. And then this is just our QR code if you do need to request some mentoring there, super helpful. Utah serves the whole state of Utah is our chapter. And we do have some branches located in St. George. So if you're looking to get connected, definitely check out our website and offerings. And I'm going to turn it over to Jill. And we are so excited to have you today. Everyone, please use the Q&A or the chat feature. Jill's really good about answering questions as we go. So here we go.
All right, perfect. And then Crystal, will you confirm that you can see my screen here in just a second? Okay. Can you see my slides okay?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure we're tracking to the same. All right. If anyone sees me looking around, I'm just trying to figure out let's see, looking where I can see the group and my slides. So let's dive right in. I always talk about this at the beginning of my trainings. We're talking today about how to be a marvelous manager. There was other trainings in the series, and there'll be more after this. But a big part of being a marvelous manager is building trust. And so if you're here today and you've trusted me with your time, I will promise you that we will be done no later than 1:30. My goal is to finish a few minutes before 1:30, in fact, to allow for any questions. So by 1:25, I'll be finishing up. And if there's no questions, you can get on to the rest of your day sooner. So that's your commitment from me. So let's dive right in. And like Crystal said, put any questions in the chat or the Q&A, and feel free to reach out to me at any point as well. So I am Jill Schroyer with Expedition HR, giving your training today. Kind of in a nutshell, I love tough conversations and sharing feedback and everything around it, from the words you use to the body language. And a lot of that is obviously a skill that marvelous managers need to use. So you just see here, it's a little bit about me so you know who's coming to you today. So we only have 30 minutes, so let's dive right in. So marvelous managers do 5 things. We talked the first week that they communicate well. And again, if you see me looking around, I've got my slides pulled up on my other screen. And then I just put last week twice. Last week we talked about building relationships and trust. Like I mentioned, I promise you what you expect to hear today and when you'll expect to be done. So today we're going to talk about the way you are a marvelous manager is by providing frequent and effective feedback. I love this topic. So these are the things we're going to discuss today. We'll call this number 1, how to invite someone into a feedback conversation. And so we're looking at this from the point of a manager giving feedback to an employee or sharing something that they need to kind of get across to other person. Second thing, what makes feedback ultra effective? And we'll call the third thing with the check mark, words to avoid when sharing feedback. If you're willing to put it in the chat, if you could let me know. So being the first one, how to invite someone is number 1. Number 2, what makes feedback effective? Number 3, which one are you most interested in hearing about today? Which one are you looking to kind of get the most, I call them gold nuggets or techniques and tips on today? So I'm going to dive right in, but if you want to put that in the chat, feel free. Okay, so let's dive in. So, but first, do you know these 3 things as it relates to feedback? The first thing, feedback is a gift. I know you want to probably throw something at me when I say feedback is a gift. And some might say, gosh, I've received feedback and there was no truth in it. Feedback is always a gift, and if you look to see if there's any truth in that feedback and can take that somehow and make you better as a manager, take it and move forward from it. Now, as a manager giving feedback, you don't have to tell your employees, look, feedback is a gift, but this is just a reality. Feedback truly is a gift. So if we're relaying it the right way, we're actually giving this person who we're talking to something really valuable, which most people would call a gift. And you are doing your employees a disservice if you're not sharing feedback, positive and constructive, on a regular basis. So some might say, "Oh, I shy away from giving feedback. I don't like it. It's hard. It's scary," or whatever the case. So we can't go on like that. We've got to be willing to share, because if we're not, we're actually doing a disservice to our employees. And the third thing I'm going to share before we dive into the rest of the content is, if you create a habit of giving regular feedback, I promise you it will not feel so hard or awkward or scary when you do need to share it eventually. Practice makes better. Maybe not perfect, but practice will make it better. So try and make it a habit. We're going to talk at the end about working the muscle, the feedback muscle. Just start. There's a favorite quote I like, and the best way to begin is to begin. So you'll see this slide come up in a lot of the presentations I do, whether it be our body language, our words, but we're kind of talking in this training about the words we use when we interact with others. Either invite them in, like we draw them in, or we shut them out and we say something and they're gone, they're tuned out because we started our conversation off in a way that was either hurtful or it was a personal attack. So we have that opportunity in every conversation to invite them in or shut them right out. So I'm going to share some phrasing with you on how to invite someone into a feedback conversation. You could say something like, "I'd like to run some things by you. Might you have time today or tomorrow to chat for a few minutes?" You could say, "I'd like to get your thoughts on," and share the thing. "Would you be willing to connect later today or tomorrow?" And you're probably noticing these are a gentler invitation. Sometimes I've been asked, well, I have someone really prickly that I need to share feedback with. These first two can work like a charm. Yes, they may wonder, what do they want to talk to me about? But that's an inviting way to ask, and the likelihood that they're going to be willing to enter into that conversation is more likely. Could also say, "There's something I've been hoping to talk with you about," or "I'd like to talk to you about," whatever the thing is. And you could add, "I commit to approaching this thoughtfully and with kindness. Is there a time when you might feel ready to have a conversation?" So in this example, you're actually sharing the thing that you're wanting to talk with them about. And you're also adding that your commitment to them is to approach it thoughtfully and with kindness. That way, you're setting up psychological safety with the other person, and please follow through on that as far as approach it with thoughtfulness and kindness. You can be direct and kind at the same time. Some other phrasing is, "I have some concerns about," let's say maybe not meeting deadlines. And in your role, that's very important. "Do you by chance have time this week to chat for a minute about this?" You could also use the phrase, "Would you be willing to meet with me to talk through the thing?" Once again, you can add in, I'm coming to you with this because it's been weighing heavily on me. I believe addressing it will help us both. I'm here to talk with kindness and honesty in hopes we can find a good way forward." So again, don't just use one because I said this phrasing could work. Use one that feels good to you. Maybe it's a compilation. Um, but I think it's later on in the slides. I want to offer to you actually a phrasing resource. I have probably 40 or 50 phrases on there. If you want to email me and say, "I want that phrasing resource," all of these here and many more are on that resource. So if you'd like that, let me know. So let's move into the second piece, is what makes feedback ultra effective. I believe these 6 things will make feedback you share effective. You have to share facts. We can't say something that we're not sure happened to bring us closer to the point of feedback that we need to make. We have to be specific. So the facts, specifics about the facts, not just like, "Oh, you missed this last week." Say the date, maybe who the client was, who was involved. You also don't want to wait 2 weeks after an issue happens to share feedback about it, positive or constructive. If you're this applies too, if you want to share some great feedback, be really specific about what it was, because little tip here, or something you might not know, if you share positive feedback and you're really specific, like, hey Jane, I noticed on that call you showed empathy towards the client. You said, gosh, I understand that must have been hard for you. How frustrating. Jane's going to want to repeat that in the future because Jane knows exactly what she did well. So again, you can apply this to positive or constructive feedback. Let's go back to the constructive feedback piece. If we don't share specifically what the issue is and kind of what brought us here, the person's going to leave not knowing what to do with that feedback. So also, you've got to do it soon after. Even if you share the facts and the specifics, if it's a month later, heck, I can't remember what I had for breakfast some days. I don't know if your employees are going to remember what they did a month ago. They might say that's not right, or no, I don't remember that, and it loses its effectiveness. When I say mindful words, hopefully this goes without saying, we should never swear to our employees. We should never, yell or make personal attacks when we're sharing feedback. It should be even. It's okay to say, I've been frustrated with this. That's okay. Emotions aren't bad. And it's not okay to yell and scream and swear at our employees. So we want to be mindful of just what words we're using. Another way to make your feedback effective is to be straightforward. I get on a soapbox about being straightforward. We want to use as few words as possible to get across what we need to say. Dancing around something is going to leave you right back in the place you started, where they're not going to know what you're trying to share with them. Let's say it's constructive feedback. They're not going to even know what you're trying to say because you're not straightforward. And also, it's going to probably land you back in a place where you're going to have to share this constructive feedback again. And who wants to do it twice? And the last one here is sharing the how. So you can be specific, you can be timely, share the feedback soon after it happens. You can make sure you're not yelling or using swear words with them or being mean or giving personal attacks. You can be straightforward. If you leave off how you want it to change in the future, you're leaving off a huge piece of how to make feedback effective and change things moving forward. So I call it sharing the how. So share the facts, be specific, share it in a timely way, watch your words, be straightforward, and share the how. So once again, we're going to talk about this again because the words we use when we interact with others either invites them in or shuts them out. So I also want to talk in this training about words to avoid. So I'm curious if you are interested in putting any in the chat. Any come to mind? Any phrases you hate when you've gotten feedback, or phrases that you say, I'll never use this when I'm sharing feedback? Like any pet peeve feedback phrases, feel free to pop them in into the chat as I go through this. I know what mine are, and I'm going to share them with you now. My least favorite phrase, and I hear it all the time, that managers say to their teams when I help clients with meetings or just hear managers talk, I need them to do this. There's 1,000 other ways to get someone to do something. I personally don't like someone to tell me that they need me to do something. You can soften it by saying, would you be willing to? And again, you're inviting them in. You're not softening it, meaning it's not that you're not going to say the hard thing. You're just using inviting language. I need you to. Or putting blame on someone else. You make me feel like this when you do whatever the thing. We want to be really careful that we're not letting others make us feel anyway, because the reality is we choose to feel the way we feel, whether we like it or not. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but we are responsible for the way we feel. Even saying, I hate that you do this, you're going to immediately slam that door. They're not going to be receptive to what you say next. The next one can be really, really harsh in a feedback, saying you always do this or you always do that, you never do this. I talk in some of my trainings about assigning like a label on someone, and if you're saying, you're always so rude. You know those stickers they give you at like a networking meeting where they stick it on you and it says, "Hello, my name is." It's almost like you're sticking that on them saying, "Hello, my name is rude person." And we don't get the right to assign that kind of label to people. We just don't. Not only is it mean, but we don't get the right to tell someone how they never are or how they always are. That is phrasing I recommend avoiding. And the reality is many of us have used this phrasing or we slip into it if that's our go-to. So just being aware, we're not going to be perfect every time. Another one, I wish you would. There's other ways to say that. It's again, there's something I have concerns about. Would you be willing to talk through with me better ways for this? Where we are, we can't stay where we are. We've got to move forward. We can't stay here. Let's talk through options. And then saying you're not something. It just again, this is shutting out language. Another one I don't like at all is you might be offended, but I need to say this, or no offense, but that can just be very, again, door shutting language. And sometimes we wonder, well, why isn't our feedback effective? I hate giving I hate giving feedback because it's never effective. Just see, and there's many other phrases on that resource as well that I can send you. We likely are saying things without maybe realizing it, or we get so nervous, which is very normal, that we slip back into the place of using our go-to phrase. Maybe I need you to do this, or you're always missing customer calls or whatever the thing. So just being careful with those. So here's the slide I mentioned. I just put this in before. I wanted to make sure if you want to get that resource, just pop me an email and say, hey, I'd love to know, like, hey, I was in your training. And if you're willing to just let me know like what your biggest takeaway was today when you email me that. But I also want to share, and I'm probably going to get through this content today sooner than we thought. This is a real quick hit feedback session, or how to do feedback. So a few final thoughts that I'd like to share. So with feedback, and one that's not on here, I'm going to share as well. First of all, though, assume good intent. When someone shares feedback with you, we want to assume that their intent was good. And we hope when we're sharing feedback that we can also assume good intent with that person. So there's a term that I like to use, selective amnesia. If there's been a lot of issues with this person and we're here to relay feedback, maybe just for a minute, forget all the other things. While they might factor into this feedback, kind of just setting them aside in the context that we don't want that to make us go into this meeting angry and our body language to be rigid. Just kind of say, you know what, I'm going to approach this conversation with a mindset of A, that they didn't know they weren't doing this thing, and that I believe that their intentions are good and that they didn't intentionally not do this thing that I need to now share feedback with them about. And extract what is useful. It is a gift. Now, telling your employees, like I said at the beginning, this is feedback's a gift. You should take this well. I'm not saying to say that. Just reminding them, they might say, I don't think what you're sharing with me makes any sense, or I'm not that way. Employees sometimes don't agree, and sometimes we kind of have to agree to disagree, meaning the managers notice something, the employee may not see eye to eye with the manager. And it's okay as a manager to say, I get that. I have to share this because it's something I've noticed. And just sharing with the employee, it's just important you take from this what you can and move forward. And same with us. If we're receiving feedback, even if that was hard to receive, what can we extract any tiny little thing from it? So either next time you receive feedback or next time you give it, share with them, look, is if there's anything in here that may help you moving forward, there is likely always something in there that truly is a gift. And this last one I'm going to share, this is something that I really like talking about when I talk about whether it be tough conversations or feedback, is ask questions. So when you're sharing feedback and you're saying this happened and here's the instances, and you're not getting angry, you're not swearing, you're coming at it soon after it happened. As we went through those steps earlier in the slides, you're being straightforward. You're saying, I'd like it to, moving forward, this is what I ask. that last step of how you want it to go forward, consider inserting a question. So you share the feedback. At the end, you could say, I've shared a lot with you today. What are your thoughts? How do you think we may be able to change things moving forward? Or how do you think we can solve this problem that we're facing with what I just shared? Oftentimes, that other person can even give themselves the feedback if you ask questions. And there's even a bonus if they're bought in. Well, I'm sorry, if they're kind of brainstorming it with you, you're likely going to get more buy-in from them and you're going to see more action forward. So I use the example sometimes about a really tough situation. We've all probably seen it where we're somewhere, whether we're managing them or we're around them. There's someone that does their job really well, but they're kind of a jerk. And so I call them high performing jerks. They're really hard to share feedback with, whether they're an employee or a manager, just someone that does their job really well. They're a key player from a performance standpoint, but they're just kind of a jerk. Those are hard people to share feedback with. This asking questions is going to be your golden technique with those people. You share, I've noticed this, or I've noticed the tone, or it was abrasive, or whatever the thing. And you could say, gosh, let's say Steve, I don't have all the answers. All I know is what I've noticed, what people have shared with me. Steve, I really want to have this be a session where we talk back and forth about some ideas you have. We can't stay here. What's happening now isn't working. We've gotten these complaints. I've seen these things. We need to move forward a different way. Steve, what are your thoughts? And then you zip it. Just like that. You stop talking. You zip the lip. A big caution here is don't ask, what do you think? And then start sharing. And Steve, I think you should do this. And I think you should do this. You've got to ask the question and then zip your lip. And it's okay if it's awkward. Make it a little awkward silence because the other person will likely need some time to think. And you also want to show them that you need help with a solution. I think managers, and this is kind of what I'll close with, is we often think we have to have all the answers, and we don't. Nor can we. Nobody has all the answers. And so as we go through working with our employees, we want to be thinking, what questions could I ask? I ask a lot of questions in my HR consulting because I have a lot of experience, but I don't know all the answers. And oftentimes I need to ask a few questions to really go through a situation fully. So I mentioned it as we close, giving feedback's like working a muscle. Sorry about the blurriness of this image on here. So it's like working a muscle at the gym. You go to the gym, you start working out, it's going to hurt. Like feedback, it's hard, it's scary. You're going to have all these emotions, physiological reaction when you sit down to share the feedback. But then just like going to the gym and working a muscle, eventually it's not going to hurt so much. And maybe I won't go so far as to say you might enjoy it, but who knows? You might find I'm giving feedback regularly and it's causing some great outcomes. I actually don't hate it anymore. So again, it's like working a muscle. So I'm open for any questions, and what I've created for those who have watched these webinars is what I call a Marvelous Manager video bundle. So there's 5 videos and they go over many things that make managers marvelous. And you can take these and download them and use them with your team. You can say, hey, we're gonna just put this video up as a quick learning bite today, or use them however you want for your learning. But they're yours if you would like. So that is what I'm going to close with today. As I promised, I'd finish no later than about 1:25, which is my time here, and making sure that we have any time for questions. So Crystal, has any questions come through? I haven't been able to see the screen for that.
I have not seen any questions come through. Feel free to raise your hand as well if you want to speak your question. And I will be sending out the recording to this along with the first 2 parts if you haven't had a chance to look those over. Those are really great sessions we've had so far. And there are still 2 more. So very exciting.
Yes, we have. Next week we'll be talking about emotional intelligence. Marvelous managers have great emotional intelligence. And well, I should say they're always working on their emotional intelligence. I know I'm a student of that. And then the last session will be on marvelous managers are time management role models and what that really means.
Awesome. Well, this is your time, whoever's joining still with us. You can also reach out to Jill via her email there. And as always, feel free to request a mentor to dive a little bit deeper into some of these areas you might need help with. That is what our SCORE mentors are here for. I'll just give it just another minute. Oh, here we go. Could you talk about differences in culture if we are speaking or giving feedback to a Filipino
Oh, yeah.
VA?
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can kind of answer this effectively. And whoever put the Q&A, maybe if you want to add anything else, if I answer this to, to your satisfaction, or feel free to pop a follow-up question. We have time. So, what I teach is fairly like universal, as far as like you can try this with your kids, you can try this with your friends, you can try this with your employees. I purposely do that. I like to keep things simple. So that would be my first kind of my first recommendation is try these things. And also to ask them. Say, I've got some things I'd love to discuss. How do you best like to receive feedback? Or if there's anything I like to share with you about, the VA work you're doing, how would you best like me to relay that? Would you like to have a meeting? Would you like me to send you an email? Should I record a video and send it to you? Ask them. This is a great example of you don't have to have all the solutions. But A, try these things. I think they'll be fairly universal. And then B, ask them. Let me know if that was helpful.
Doesn't look like there's any follow-up, but the question, oh, from what I've seen, the Filipino culture is very big on respect and getting things right. So there's an added sensitivity I feel needed to be had.
Mm. And again, I can't speak to it from expertise on the culture. But I have experience personally working with teams I actually have worked with a Filipino VA as well. And so like I say, I use a lot of, would you be willing to, or so for instance, if there was something which has happened, I've had to ask feedback on things, or asked, given feedback on something. And I've typically asked a question like, would you be willing to share, about this piece and how you got to that thing? Because I want to learn before I'm going to share feedback, just to make sure I've gotten it right. But that's what I teach anyway. I like to make sure I'm getting it right before I'm sharing the feedback, because frankly, shame on me if I don't have all the information before I'm saying, okay, next time I want you to do it like this. I usually also too, would you be open to a couple ways I'd like this done in the future? And you might be thinking, well, I'm paying them. Why would I ask them if they're open to feedback? It's really hard for people to say no when you say, would you be open to my sharing some things I'd like done next time? Because respect to me is universal. It should be across cultures. Hope that was helpful. Let me know.
All right. Well, it looks like we are just about at the 30-minute mark there. So thank you everyone who attended today. Please be on the lookout for the recording. If you have any other follow-up questions, please reach out to Jill. One more response. How do I give feedback to a fellow senior manager who assumes that they are smarter than the others to encourage openness across the team?
Yeah, so this might be a larger question, but let me see in this quick minute if I can share. So I'm assuming you're a peer of this. So you're a senior manager and this person is also a senior manager, and it looks like the question went away. So I'm not sure I can see. Actually I see it now. How to give feedback who assumes they are smarter than the others to encourage openness. Again, a lot of these same things. So, for instance, saying, hey, I've noticed some things. Would you be open to chatting with me about some ways that together we can be more effective with the teams we work with? Something, would you be open to inviting language with these? It's someone that thinks they're smarter than the others. That's that example I gave too. Oftentimes we have these people, they do their job well and they just think they can act any way around others, and kind of just say, hey, would you be open to brainstorming some ideas of to be more effective with the teams we work with? So let me know if that's helpful at all. Okay, and it was a fellow manager. It looks like we've got to wrap up here. And then a quick one. Can I assume this advice applies to contractors? Sure. Yeah, this works with anyone. Contractors, though, you don't have the obligations when it comes to employment law. And perfect. Someone said it was helpful. Thank you. So yeah, we're a little bit over time. Hopefully those that needed to drop off did. But thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you all.
Take care.